I believe we have a soundbite of Ram Jethmalani from outside the Madras High Court. Let's just listen into what the senior counsel who's arguing for these convicts had to say.
Now, will you please allow me to say two things? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. First of all, I am here because of my friend Wacko. Wacko has brought me here. The second is, you should be grateful to Wacko and not to me. And ultimately, you have to be grateful to the High Court. The High Court is doing justice. Be sure.
What has it said, sir? What is it said?
They have stayed the execution of the sentence.
Have you asked for a notice from the union government? Have they asked for a notice?
We are all grateful to Ram Jethmalani and Kali Gonsalves and Mohit Chowdhury. We are all grateful on behalf of Kavit. We are grateful to the High Court. We are grateful to the judiciary. We are grateful to Ram Jethmalani ji.
Right, that was Ram Jethmalani speaking outside the Madras High Court, presumably before the trial began in that case. I believe we're joined by Subramanian Swamy, who represents the other side of the divide, if I may say so, on the phone line. Dr. Swamy, purely on legal grounds, the fact that it took the president 11 years to dismiss this mercy plea seems to be a strong grounds to move the courts.
Well, it's superficially a strong ground, but factually it would be a strong ground if the crime was not a premeditated one, and it was not an act against people in public office. The stay, I believe, is inconsistent with a Supreme Court judgment of 1990 that if the president turns down a mercy petition and another mercy petition is filed, then a stay cannot be given. And I think the Attorney General in Delhi ought to be asked to file a petition in the Supreme Court and get this clarified. I'm very surprised that the Madras High Court has given a stay of 8 weeks. They could have decided before the 9th of September. But the stay is something which needs to be tested against the previous judgments of the Supreme Court on this subject.
Sir, considering the kind of political statements that have been made and considering the fact that while this may not be represented or be an electoral issue with the large majority, but there are hardliners who do believe that this is an emotive and strong issue, do you believe that it will be only purely a legal decision at the end of the day, or do you believe it will have something that has a political overtone to it?
Well, political overtone is that the Prime Minister of India has been held guilty for a policy which some foreigners didn't like. These three people who are on the death row, they are not Indians. They are Sri Lankan.
One of them is Indian, sir. One of them, K. Arivalan, is an Indian national.
All right, one of them is Indian, but he worked as a stooge. He worked for foreigners.
Well,
and he worked for a foreign terrorist organization. So the fact of the matter is that if you want to look at the political angle, there's no question that the political angle is all weighted in favor of patriots in this country. It can't be weighted in favor of anti-nationals.
So purely on legal terms, do you believe now this will go through that route of going back to the Supreme Court at the end of the day?
No, I think the Attorney General ought to move the Supreme Court and get the stay vacated. And if they want to, if the Madras High Court wants to look at the inordinate delays, there's no problem. But he has to do it before the 9th of September.
Sir, but one of the judgments that is being quoted is of a 1989 judgment where the Supreme Court had observed that inordinate delay in disposing of a mercy plea is cruelty far greater than the death sentence itself. On those grounds alone, this case has been admitted. The interim stay has been awarded primarily on the grounds that it took an
I'm afraid you have not read the judgment in full. These considerations are amongst the many considerations. But when a murder takes place on the basis which is not a crime of passion, it is not a question of personal enmity, but it is something that is directed against the state. because they have publicly declared, and in the court they have declared that they had killed Rajiv Gandhi because he sent IPKF to Sri Lanka. Now that was a parliament decision. He can't be, Rajiv Gandhi can't be held personally responsible for that. So here is a totally different situation altogether. And you can't take the inordinate delay question in this and apply it here. This is only one consideration, and it falls when you square it with the other considerations.
Right, sir. I understand it is a very strong legal case in the fact that the Supreme Court has convicted them, sentenced to death, so we cannot argue about the facts of the case. But just for a moment, bringing the other side of the argument to you, that these were not the key conspirators. They were in the periphery, including the case of Per Arivalan, who had allegedly only supplied batteries for making the explosion. It was not proven conclusively whether he was aware of the plot itself. In those grounds,
it is not for you to judge what is key and what is not key. The Supreme Court, 3 judges went into this and wrote a 400-page judgment. Pages of judgment.
I'm just putting that argument forwarded by
That is a stupid argument, because I don't accept that any one of us has any right to talk about what is key and what is not key. A battery is as key as a bullet or a trigger.
Right, fair point, sir. Thanks very much. Appreciate you joining us, representing the other point of view, saying the Attorney General should intervene. The key news point from what Mr. Subramanian Swamy, who's been in touch with this case very closely, is that the Attorney General must intervene and move the Supreme Court to ensure that the stay is lifted.